Welcome to a new Oceanleaf video, and in this episode we are going to make a recap of 2024 with Intune news, and we're discussing and summarizing all the great content which is new in the product and all new features. And for that, I brought Nicklas.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting me, Nicklas. My name is also Nicklas, but it's spelled the correct way, I would say. I'm a Microsoft student ambassador, and I love blogging about Intune and talking about Intune. So yeah, thank
All
you for
right,
inviting me.
let's get started. So you might pause here in the video because there were quite a lot of changes and news in Intune. And here's what I did. There's this nice URL here below me, which is Intune What's New. And there Microsoft releases or writes about all their new releases and changes and feature updates. And I wrote all of them in this list, and there's even a second slide to that. And we have some highlights here. I also make them bold here. But Nicklas, what do you think? What was your highlight from half year two?
So I actually think a lot of them are really nice additions to Intune, but in specifically when we're talking about some of the biggest highlights, I would say EPM support for MSI and PowerShell file types. It just makes using EPM a lot more handy than it was before. And also, if we have to talk about another big feature, the Windows Enrollment attestation as well. It's really nice that you can get a full report, but also take action upon that report afterwards. And if I don't have to take the bold ones, I can also say that the new improvements to the IME logs is also really nice. It's good to see they have split some additional information out in other logs than the Intune management extension log. So yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, agree. So, and here's the second slide, so you might need to pause again. But also here we see additions to EPM, and be careful, especially when you're handling with this mobile OS versions, so iOS, iPadOS, Android, because Intune is continuously rising those minimum versions that are supported for the product, because yeah, that's just normal life cycle for software. So make sure you update your versions there. There was also a new UI for company portal for Windows. Of course, you should have seen that. And if you didn't live under a rock, you've also noticed Windows 365 link on the horizon, which is pretty cool, and we're going to talk about later. And there's also some expanded Linux support. So quite something going on. But let's jump into the most relevant features from our perspective. And this one is Nicklas' favorite feature here, EPM enhancements, so Intune Suite Endpoint Privilege Management, which lets you allow to run apps or different file types now, PowerShell, so .ps1 and MSI files with elevated access, so not as an administrator, but with administrative rights. And this now also supports, like I said, PowerShell scripts, which is pretty cool, and MSI installation files. As first feature, and the second advancement is that you now can create rules from the support approval request. So this means if any new file comes along for an end user and you haven't specified a rule yet, the user can request that. So you in the admin portal need to allow or decline, and you can directly create a rule set based upon that request. So you don't need to enter it manually anymore, which is pretty cool. And a little bonus is from our colleague from Australia, Jose, which made a little blog post, which is linked here, which he describes how to set up notification as soon as such a approval request is made by an end user. So in case you want to have a solution for that and don't monitor it manually. Now, the second thing is about all iOS, iPadOS enrollment updates, because there was quite a bit going on with the version 18, which Apple released. And a few customers actually reached out to me because they had issues while enrolling those new devices. And that's also a good message, because it says that they are having up-to-date devices. But you don't need to be worried about the existing devices. This really only impacts newly shipped devices with iOS, iPadOS version 18 and above, of course. And Apple has made some changes here. you can't use the profile-based enrollment with company portal in that new version. So you need to do a little technical migration there. And I know in the mobile area, there's not always the same definition for bringing your own device. But what I suggest here is that you have a look at the account-driven user enrollment for that feature, because it only enrolls the device part of the user, or only the managed workload, the company part, and not the whole device. That would be device-driven enrollment. But if you want to make the change here, you just need to create some technical steps as I listed them. So for example, the well-known file on your domain, set up that new enrollment profile, set up just-in-time registration. That's basically it. Make sure you read the documents and the concept about it, but then this should be working all fine again. So yeah, enrollment attestation.
Yeah, so this is probably one of the most interesting features for Windows. So Windows Enrollment Attestation is that to make sure that we can trust our hardware. So it relies on the TPM to store the private keys of the MDM certificates, but also the access token from Enter ID, or Azure AD, as someone would call it. So in this process, it's really important to make sure that the hardware hasn't been, or the device hasn't been tampered with. And as of now, it's only available for physical devices and not virtual devices. So yeah, in Intune currently you can generate this report, and then you can see if a device has been successfully attested or not. It's a hard word, but yeah, when you're generating this report, it's also possible to see a reason why it's failing. But you can also perform a remote action that will try to attest it as well. So if you have devices that haven't been attested, it's possible to do manually after generating the report. And another great feature, Cloud PKI. So it's an interesting feature. Certificates are always very fun, as leads someone would say. So it's a cloud-based solution that gives you a PKI infrastructure without any servers. And it's a part of the Microsoft Intune suite, or it can also be brought as a standalone license as well. And as some of the key points I would like to mention is that in June, in that service release, a new property got added. So you can now see which certification authority keys that are being used. And currently there is two different ones. There is the hardware backed key and the software backed key as well. And yeah, also to mention, in July, Microsoft added some actions as well. So you now have the possibility to perform an action to pause or resume, but you can also revoke or delete your certificates as well. So yeah, that's really useful as well.
Pretty cool, yeah. If you are using a trial of this feature or of Intune Suite in general, you will go with the software-backed certificate keys. But if you really buy the product itself, then you get the full HSM module or get the full hardware-backed support. That's pretty cool, and maybe also nice to mention here.
Yeah.
Good, and especially in the Windows Cloud area, where my home is, there were big news at Ignite last year. So Windows 365 Link got introduced, and I'm sure you've already seen that product. What we know as of now, and is also mentioned officially in the docs, which is kind of obvious, that there is a support for Intune to manage that physical device, so the Link device itself. Microsoft claims that there is an auto update feature to, I guess, the firmware, which is sitting on top of Link. But we will be sure that there is some configuration options also for the device itself, maybe to do some little configuration tweaks here and there. There's also a blog post which I have written on the whole Windows 365 Link topic. So if you want to get to know more, and the rest we'll see in April 2025 in the selected regions to see what's supported with Intune. And then one more feature which I want to talk about is multi-admin approval, because I see that there is something going on with that product. And this is also like my shout out to Microsoft. Please, please, please continue to improve that. For those who don't know, it's in the Intune Basic P1 part. So every customer which has Intune can use it. And it's basically a dual control system. So for example, if I want to create a new script or a new app in Intune, or also do a modification, I can submit that for approval. And then some other administrator, for example, the other Nicklas, must have a look at that approval and see the changed values, and he needs to complete or cancel my request. And only after he does that, the changes will be applied. So this is currently limited to apps and scripts, but it's pretty cool. And also in the what's new, we saw that there are some new features with that feature. For example, for remote action swipe and so on, that's currently in development. So pretty cool stuff there.
Yeah, and also another great feature, device inventory, is now available for Windows devices in the Intune Plan 1 license as well. And it's possible to configure your different properties right from the configuration page in Intune. And you can pick all of the properties if you would like to do that, but you can also pick individual properties as well. And once you do that, another agent will get installed on the device as well to gather the information as well. It's important to say that the inventory information will be updated once every 24 hours only. So you have to think about that once you are looking into the data. And also mentioned here on the slide, you have the possibility to use the Resource Explorer on each individual device. You don't have the complete overview of all devices, but you can also use KQL as well if you would like to do that.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a nice feature, but yeah, it's limited to the single device overview at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. And now for the future, let's have an outlook. So let's just each pick one, and then make a little ping pong here.
Yeah, so to start off with endpoint privilege management, hopefully we will see soon support for ARM64 devices. That's really going to be cool. But yeah, also to collaborate with Copilot. I think Microsoft has talked 90% of the time about Copilot, so it's interesting to see how Copilot can collaborate together with EPM. And also to add more for EPM, it will support rule for file arguments and parameters as well. It's also in development, so really interesting to see when that's complete.
Absolutely, yeah. And they're also working on the apps workload and admin experience in Intune. So this just means that they're like reshaping the portal design, like how the apps are looked and is structured, and what makes sense for customers to see and maybe what not, or should be organized otherwise. So this is also a nice addition here in development.
Yeah, and also Apple has updated their API to version 2.0. So basically, it's updated how it's managing apps through the volume purchase program.
Exactly. Yeah. Microsoft is also working on their application system. So Intune Suite's enterprise app catalog is in development to be added as enrollment status page blocking apps list. So this means that those apps must be installed before the system gets productive or ends that autopilot device preparation process. And this is also in development to be supported for enterprise application management.
Yeah, and also hopefully we will see a bigger but also a better settings catalog, as recently Microsoft retired the administrative templates. So yeah, it's interesting to see new additions there.
Yeah, same goes for remote actions. So as I said, multi-admin approval, they're working on, I think, the delete, wipe, and also retire button to be capable for multi-admin approval. So I just can't accidentally wipe a device. A second admin must approve that. That's pretty cool direction with that feature.
Yeah, and also remote help support for AVD. It's going to be interesting. As of now, you can use it locally on Windows devices, but not for AVD. So really looking forward to that one as well.
Same goes for platform level targeting with the device cleanup rules. So that's a feature that removes stale devices from Intune, at least from the admin perspective. It's probably still down there somewhere in technology, but you can in the future also specify this for different OS versions and not just have one general device cleanup rules beyond all the operating systems.
How are you normally configuring your device cleanup rules in an environment?
It depends on the
You,
customer, but I would say between 90 and 180 days is like
okay.
the accepted range.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, and also, as I mentioned before, Copilot is going to be more interactive in the Intune console as well. So hopefully we'll see more use of Copilot when we are configuring different things within the Intune portal.
Probably also in the security baseline, which is the
Yeah,
next one, to see how other organizations configured these values or how we're doing or how the adoption of the security baseline is. So they will also work on updated security baselines. Of course, this always comes with the product. And yeah, maybe with Copilot.
yeah, it's really going to be interesting to see how Copilot can give you some information about the different policies or baselines that you're configuring.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah. And device courier as well for multiple devices. I mean, that's going to be indeed really interesting. And I'm really looking forward to this one as well.
Yeah, especially if it's real time. Maybe it's not. We will
Yeah.
see. And last but not least, they will continuously rise the OS version support on all endpoints. So let it be Windows, macOS, iOS, iPadOS, Android, and Linux, probably also Chrome OS. Yeah, so that's normal, as we said. And these were like some of the features which are in development. Have a look at the link here if you're interested to see what's going on in the product. And otherwise, just follow this series with Intune News. And that's already it with today's episode. I hope we could clean up and make a great summarization of 2024, half year two. And thanks again very much, Nicklas, for being today's co host. Goodbye.
Yeah. Thank you for inviting me.